Hi and welcome to tutorial number 1 of the Virtual Reality in the Classroom course. My name is Matthias Klaasner and I'm just firing up Premiere Pro to get the 360 editing started. So I'm gonna start with a new project and directly point a location where to save it, and of course give it a name. So my project is called 360 Demo Class 1 and I'm gonna save it on a location which makes sense. So I'm gonna use the 360 video folder on my desktop, which is perfect. That's where my assets are as well. And all the default settings are perfect like they are. So I'm gonna hit OK. And now I know where my file is saved. And I want to start importing my assets over here in my project bin. I can do that from the file menu and then import my assets. So file import. And I'm gonna import my 3 scenes, my 3 shots, if you will. And of course you are free to use your own material or the other footage we've provided, but in this case I'm using my own footage, and I'm going to start with scene number 1. And this is me standing in front of a very Dutch windmill, and of course on a Dutch way of getting around, my bike. And I want to edit this clip. It's a little bit distorted. That's because this shot is a 360 video, and when we make it spherical again, it will make sense. So I'm going to start off with making an in point and an out point for this first shot. So let's drag the playhead back again and listen where I'm going to start saying my first sentence. There we go. So just before I raise my hand, I'm gonna make an in point. So this is my starting point of clip number 1, scene number 1, and I'm gonna search for the end point. And near the end, I'm gonna ask the viewer to look around, look behind him and see the windmill which is there. So I want to give him or her a little bit of time when I shut up. So I'm gonna make an out point over here. So this is my in and out point, and this is the amount of frames that I want to use in my timeline. I don't have a timeline yet. I want to make one by dragging and dropping my first clip onto my timeline, and that will give me a sequence with the exact correct settings and will give me my final edit in the program monitor. Of course this is more or less the same, but I only have one clip yet on my timeline, but it works. Because of the fact that we've dragged and dropped VR footage on the timeline, Premiere Pro knows to treat it like VR. So I've got my little VR button already over here. If you don't have a VR toggle in your interface, you can add one by going into this little plus sign. And there are lots of buttons which you can apply to your interface. So I've got the toggle VR over here, and I can drag and drop it easily in the middle of my tools wherever I'd like. There we go. And now I've got my toggle VR, which allows me to easily go from a flat interface to a 360 interface. And this interface works, of course, like you would expect. But the view of this little viewport is very little actually. So I want to make a little bit wider view. So I go into the range, the settings, search for VR video, and then hit settings, and just increase the amount of degrees horizontally, and that will give me a nice 16:9 like aspect ratio, which is more like I expect it to be. Please be aware of always set those numbers back to 0 again, because that's the default orientation of your export. So when you export your video later on, and we'll do that at the end of this tutorial, please make sure that everything is set to 0 and that you know what you are looking at. Very important in the world of VR. So easily set those back to 0 again by toggling it off and on again, and everything set to 0. So let's go and search for scene number 2, open it up and search for my starting cue. Yeah, get rid of the sunglasses. And there we go. After this beautiful piece of history, I want the viewer to look around all the pictures that we will add in tutorial number 2. So at the end of my line, I want to give the viewer a little bit of time to look around and for me to walk away. So this is going to be my endpoint just before the sound of the car comes by, and drag and drop it behind clip number 1, snap it to the end. There we go. And this is my second clip, and it's already an edit, but we want to close the story at the end, make the circle round. So let's search for the in point of the final clip. In point, and let's give it some time to make a nice fade out. End point, and drag and drop it over here. Until now it looks a bit like normal editing, normal flat video editing, but we want to play around with the orientation. So I know that this is going to be the first shot the viewer will see when he puts on his VR goggles. But yeah, I want him to look at me at first and then look around on my cue to find out, hey, there's a windmill. So I want to rotate this shot, not by hand, by dragging everything around. This is only for preview purposes, not for final editing purposes. So I want to add an effect over here. So I'm gonna go for the effects panel and search for a VR video effect. So let's open up the video effects folder and search for the immersive video bin. There we go. And all these effects can be applied, but I'm searching for the VR rotate sphere and just drag and drop it onto the first clip. Let's take it one clip at a time. And I want to see myself, but by dragging and dropping this effect on clip number 1, nothing really happened, but under the hood a lot happened. In the effect controls we will find the VR rotate sphere effect below all the default effects which were already there. So let's go a little bit down and see what all these effects can do for you. So it can tilt, pan and roll the camera, or the world actually. So I can tilt the world going up and downwards. There we go. Let's reset that one. We can pan, and that's what I'd like to do. Reset it again and roll it. So that will rotate your horizon actually. And move that back again. So I'm gonna pan it and let the viewer view me. There we go. And this is gonna be my first shot. As you remember, I will ask the viewer to look around, look behind him to see the windmill, so we can imagine that the viewer is looking backwards at the end of this clip. So when he is rotated 180 degrees, he probably won't see me at the start of scene number 2. So I want to rotate this 180 degrees as well, in order for the viewer who's looking backwards to see me. So let's add another VR rotate sphere over here. There it is again, and let's pan it 180 degrees, or just fill it out with the numbers. There we go. Over here I'm asking the viewer to take a full turn around to see all the pictures and end up at the exact same position at the end. So this shot is perfect, but let's add the rotate one on top of this one as well, to add in the amount of meters below sea level over here. So let's give that some space. So this is going to be my first edit in 360 with the orientation rotated. So let's have a look and preview what it looks like. Nice to meet you. So I need to look around. Oh yeah, there's a windmill. Scene number 2. There we go. I'm in sight of the camera. Over here I'm asking to look around, and there are going to be some pictures of the flood in 1953 and end up over here again. And then, so I need to rotate it again and have a look at me. And now the cut is perfect. So let's bring this back to the 0 degrees again. Disable, enable. There we go. And this is ready for export for our first edit. So File, Export Media. Let's stick with the format H.264 over here in my case. There's lots to choose from, but this one will give me an MP4 file which can be easily added to YouTube. I'm going to use the match source preset, perfect, and let's give it an output name just with a click on the blue tag over here. Export 360. There we go, save, and then use export, because Premiere Pro already knows that this is, let's take a look at the video tab, that this is a VR video. So it's implementing metadata into the file, so YouTube will understand that it's 360 footage. Export, and let's wait a sec. So nearly done. 1 second, there we go. And now we can upload it to YouTube. I've got my own YouTube channel, so I can upload a video, and that will give me this this view. Just select this button over here and search for your 360 export. There we go. And now it will upload to your channel. You can put it on public or unlisted, whatever you prefer. Don't put it on private or scheduled, because then we can't see and grade your footage. And this will give you a link which you can put in your learning journal. Important thing to know is that you need to have a browser which will support your 360 video. So not for uploading necessarily, but to view it. You probably end up with using Google Chrome's browser to see the full 360 experience. And same goes for your mobile devices. You will need to use the YouTube player to get the full 360 experience. So it needs to process it for a bit. Once it is done, it probably won't work directly. Don't think you've done anything wrong. It just takes some time for it to process and see that it's a 360 video footage. And those final 5% always take a long time. So okay, it's done, and it gives me the URL which I can copy for my learning journal, or just select the thumbnail to go to the video.
Hi, my name is Matthijs. I live in Europe.
There we go. And it works perfectly even within the
and we speak Dutch.
Firefox browser.
We are famous, of course, for our 20% of the country finds itself below average sea level. With our 6.74
and final shot is correct as well.
22.2 feet below sea level. It could sound very dangerous, but
so everything works. This is the way to get it onto YouTube. I hope you will have fun with it. Let's play around with all the things that you can do with your 360 video. And we are curious to find out what you've done with it in your learning journal.